Let's talk about a 500-year-old story that, believe it or not, is probably more relevant to your business strategy than this morning's market report. We're going on a journey from the age of the scribe all the way to the ubiquity of the cloud. And look, this isn't just a history of printing. It's about a pattern, a recurring cycle of technological disruption that is still shaking up our world today.
So here's the central question we're really tackling. What can a machine of wood and metal from the 1400s possibly teach a modern executive? Someone navigating the chaos of AI, cloud computing, and digital transformation. Well, the answer, as you're about to see, is pretty much everything.
And let's be crystal clear about something. We are not here for a nostalgic look back at the past. Think of this as a strategic briefing. We're going to break down the mechanics of disruption to give you a framework, a new lens for seeing, and more importantly, acting on the next big revolutionary wave.
To do that, we've zeroed in on 3 core principles. Let's call them the pillars of disruption. These are the patterns that pop up again and again, supporting every major revolution in how we share information. These are the timeless rules that successful innovators tap into and that established players ignore at their own peril.
Okay, pillar number 1, system integration. Here's the thing. The biggest breakthroughs, they rarely come from a single magical invention out of nowhere. No. The real game-changing disruption happens when someone combines existing, sometimes totally unrelated technologies into a brand new, powerful, and scalable system.
And this is where we get a popular myth completely wrong. We all think of Gutenberg as the inventor of the printing press, but he was really a master integrator. He didn't invent the press itself. He actually adapted it from wine and olive presses. He didn't create brand new ink or metals from scratch. His real genius was in synthesizing all these existing pieces, the mechanics, the chemistry, the materials, into one cohesive system that completely changed the world.
Which brings us to our second pillar, radical democratization. A technology can be impressive, sure, but it's not truly revolutionary until it gets out of the hands of a few gatekeepers and into the hands of, well, everyone. It's that critical shift from centralized production for the few to decentralized personal creation for the many.
And the impact was just staggering. Before Gutenberg, information was locked down, controlled. After Gutenberg, it was unleashed. The printing press is what allowed Martin Luther to challenge the church, what let Copernicus share his radical model of the universe, and it gave birth to the very first newspapers. See, it wasn't just about printing more books. It was about completely rewiring the power structures of society itself.
And this pattern definitely did not stop in the 15th century. Fast forward a bit, and the typewriter pulls document creation out of the professional print shop and puts it right onto your desk. Then, centuries later, the laser printer gives that same desk the power of a professional typesetter. Each step is another massive shift of power, right to the individual.
Now for our third and final pillar, and honestly, this is the one that's most often overlooked: materials science. An idea can be absolutely brilliant, but if the physical stuff it's made of can't support it at scale, it's going to fail. Innovations in the actual materials of a technology are often the physical key that unlocks its global potential.
This comparison right here tells the whole story. Movable type? It wasn't even Gutenberg's idea. It was invented in China by a man named Bi Xing almost 400 years earlier. But, and this is the crucial part, he used porcelain clay. It was fragile, it was inconsistent, and it just couldn't hold up to the pressures of mass use. Gutenberg's real breakthrough was a specific metal alloy, a mix of lead, tin, and antimony. It was durable, it melted at a low temperature, and it cast perfectly uniform letters every single time. That material innovation is what made the whole revolution scalable.
Okay, so I know what some of you are probably thinking right now. It's easy to connect these dots looking backward, right? Fair enough. So let's tackle the most common objections head on. Because I'm telling you, these historical patterns are more relevant now than they have ever been.
So objection number 1 is always about relevance. It's the idea that, sure, that's interesting, but the pace of modern technology makes these old examples useless. You think your industry is just different, it's faster.
But just look at this timeline. The pattern isn't just repeating, it's accelerating. It took almost 600 years to get from woodblock printing to metal type. Then another 400 years from the press to the typewriter. A little over a century to get to the laser printer. And now, in just a few decades, we've jumped to cloud-based fabrication. The cycle is speeding up, which makes understanding the underlying pattern more critical, not less.
All right, the second big objection, the myth of dematerialization. This is the belief that because so much of our work is digital, with bits and bytes, the old constraints of the physical world and material science just don't apply anymore.
And this is exactly why that thinking is so dangerous.
Technologies like 3D printing are literally turning bits directly into atoms. We are moving beyond just communication and into direct fabrication. Digital designs are becoming physical prototypes, custom machine parts, and even bioprinted human tissue. The physical world isn't obsolete. It's the next frontier for digital disruption.
And the final objection, the one I see all the time, the hunt for the silver bullet. It's this deeply ingrained belief that true innovation is all about finding that one singular, brilliant idea, that one big eureka moment. But as we've already seen, that's just a flawed strategy. The true eureka moment is almost never a single invention. It's the brilliant integration of a system. Your next big breakthrough probably won't be a new component. It's going to be the platform that makes all the existing components work together in a powerful new way. So the big question is, what do you do with all this? How does this help you on Monday morning? Let's translate this 500-year framework into a concrete, actionable playbook for your executive team.
It's 3 simple steps. 1. Stop hunting for lone inventors and start hunting for system integrators. Find the teams that are building platforms that unify all sorts of different technologies. 2. Spot democratization early. Pay very close attention to any tech that is moving from complex, centralized expert control to simple, decentralized user creation. That's a huge red flag for impending disruption. And 3. Don't dismiss the physical world. Recognize that the next great digital leap forward might just be unlocked by a breakthrough in material science.
You know, when you step back, this entire story, from a modified wine press to a focused beam of light to a cloud-connected fabricator, it's all about one fundamental human drive, the need to share ideas. The real engine of progress has always been about finding ways to get our thoughts out of our heads and into the world, faster, wider, and with more impact than ever before. So look, the patterns are clear, and the pace is only getting faster. The next revolution of reach, it's already starting. So the only question left is this. Are you going to be the one to build it, or are you going to be replaced by it?